All right, so hello and welcome to everyone who is watching this live stream, specifically to the people who are watching this live stream after it's been recorded, right? You're not watching it live, but you're watching the recording. Today we are going to have some teachings, some meditation, and it's really going to be a good opportunity to learn about Zen, to learn about Buddhism, the wisdom of Buddhism. So if you're very interested in that, you can go ahead and move to the about the 10-minute mark is when we will officially get started. For the next 10 minutes or so, we will be giving people time to join in, especially in our Discord group call. And then in about 10 minutes, we will officially begin. All right, so welcome to everyone. And if you're watching the recording, you can move ahead to the 10-minute mark, and that's where when we will officially get started. Okay? Thanks for being here. Okay, testing. All right. Hi there, Stefan, Mickey, Max. Welcome. We'll take about 5 minutes or so, about 6 minutes till we officially get started. Give people time to join in, to get comfortable. Hi there, Anastasia. Hope you're doing well.
I am. Thank you. Good morning.
Oh, good morning. You might want to bring some blankets, right? It's very cold here. All right. Hi, Karuna.
Good morning. Bante, good morning. And happy birthday. Very much happy birthday.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Karuna. Hello, Krish and Mahir. Welcome in, and
Hello.
Maximiliano as well. A few more minutes till we begin. Just give people time to join. Okay, hi there, Chris and Anna.
Hello.
Hello, Sila. Welcome in, Sila. Okay, so just another minute till we begin. Hey there, Caleb and Jamie, both just in time, about to start. All right. So, welcome everyone to this happening. We have about 15 people online, and we have 3 people here at the center. Make that about 16 people online, and I'll just turn the camera here so you can see the yogis here at the Tabarwa, South Italy center joining. We're all very, very cold. So wherever you are, you can share some warmth with the Tabarwa, South Italy center here. And hi there, Abby. Welcome. So we're going to start our practice together with some meditation. We can all take a few moments to find our meditation position. Maybe that's laying down, maybe that's seated upright using a cushion in a meditation posture. Maybe that's sitting in a gaming chair or a computer chair with our feet flat on the ground. But finding a comfortable, stable position for our body to practice meditation. Again, place our hands in our lap or on our knees. Closing our eyes and starting to become more aware, to notice more and more the presence of our body right now. Feeling of the body sitting here. Feeling the effect that the breath has in the body. Feeling the breath in our chest, our stomach, perhaps even feeling the breath in the lungs themselves, feeling the lungs expanding and contracting. Right now, no other focus, no other responsibility besides breathing and being with the body. Being aware of the body at this moment. Instead of relying on our thoughts, our judgments, our ideas, at this moment we rely on noticing. A real direct awareness of the lived experience at this moment of having a body. We can give extra attention to the feeling of the breath as it flows in through our nostrils. Feeling the breath as it enters our nose, comes in and goes out. Just breathing and being aware at this moment without any judgment. So even though we may feel something that is uncomfortable, something that we don't like, right now we just experience it as it is, just aware of it instead of getting caught up in our judgments about it. And because there is no goal or expectation in our meditation practice, we're constantly restarting, constantly refreshing, starting back at the beginning. This present moment sensation of the breath coming in through our nose, feeling the breath deep in our stomach, the breath coming in and going out. Try to let the body be particularly still. The only movement, the feeling of the breath, our stomach expanding and contracting. Just notice how the mind is. Notice how the body is. And our method of meditation, our way of staying with noticing instead of thinking or making judgments, is feeling these present moment sensations. The feeling of the breath flowing in and out, the feeling of a pain in the body, even a distraction is a kind of reminder, bringing us back to the present moment, bringing us back to this direct, lived experience that is not conceptual, not relying on the past or the future. So right now, just sitting here, breathing in a way that helps you to be comfortable and aware. Noticing what it's like, not at any other moment, but noticing what it's like at this very moment to just be, to just sit here, to just be aware of the body and mind. We can connect with a sense of gentleness, a sense of sincerity, and also this very keen, very clear truth that this is what is happening right now. This is what is happening right now. So be fully aware of this happening right now. The breath, the body, and the mind all coming together. When you notice that feeling, that energy to go and do something else, that feeling of, or that thought that, well, this isn't quite working, I need to go do something else, I need to go do a dance. Practice at this moment to give that up. Don't give so much weight. Don't give so much seriousness to those thoughts, to those distractions. Just aware of them at this moment, returning back to your breath, returning back to this awareness of the body sitting here. Try to enjoy and to connect with deeply all these sensations, the whole spectrum of experience that's happening right now. No need to make one part of your experience good and one part of your experience bad. Through this just breathing and being aware, experience it all without judgment. If you're cold, be cold. If you're hot, be hot. If you're a mess, be a mess. Just allow yourself to be, regardless of the content of what's coming up. Just being, breathing, aware. Sometimes when we do meditation, we are very distracted. Sometimes we are very sleepy. Sometimes we are very zen. We have the meditation experience that we think is what we've been searching for and looking for. It's most important to just be present, aware, awake, not confused. Maybe the things that are coming up are confusing, but your awareness, your practice of just being here at this moment is not confusing. Okay, so we can slowly open our eyes if they are closed. We can start to move our body from the left to the right. Start to move slowly and mindfully, stretching a bit. We can massage our face. Massage our head and our neck if we like to, if we feel that that's good for us. Make sure that you are comfortable, relaxed, and aware. And we are now going to start with our direct teaching. So we're going to be reading from a book today that is a collection of teachings from a master, Empty Cloud, Zhu Yun. So Zhu Yun is a somewhat modern day Chinese Zen master. He died in the early 1900s, but he was a very, very prolific meditator, many stories about him surviving in the snow and walking barefoot and surviving beatings from the Chinese military. Basically, a teacher for teachers. A teacher of teachers is a good way to understand who this master was. And he lived to be about 101 years old. There's a particular story about when this master was in his 80s or 90s and at his monastery in China in the early 1900s. And there was a change of government going on. So the government in China was no longer supportive of Buddhism. And these soldiers went to the temple looking for treasures. They heard that there were treasures at this temple. And this master, very famous, one of the most famous masters in China at the time. So they figured that his temple would have a lot of treasures and special things for them to take. So they went there and they found an empty temple with only the master there, Master Empty Cloud. And he sent all the other monks away, so they also weren't there, the other monks who followed him. And so they beat him senseless. They beat him almost to death. And luckily enough, after they beat him and left him for dead, his monks, his students came back from the mountain, the forest areas, and they brought him back to health. And he told the monks, they said, how did you survive this? How were you able to survive? And he said, I could have died, but I kept myself alive so that these soldiers would not get the bad karma, the bad effect from killing a monk. There's a very kind of, it's a little bit like a superstitious in some ways. I think it's a good superstition, but in Buddhist cultures and Buddhist societies, there's a very strong idea of if you are disrespectful to a person worthy of respect, then it's very bad for you. In a very subtle kind of way, you're setting yourself up for difficulties. So if you're nasty to a very good person, you're setting yourself up for problems. And how much more so, to beat almost to death an enlightened person. And he's very well understood to be basically an enlightened person. So after this happened, the soldiers heard about this. Basically, all of China heard about this because he's a very famous monk. And eventually those soldiers came back. They were so moved by his act to stay alive, his consideration for them, even though they beat him to death, that they went on to become Buddhist. They went on to become very devout. So that just kind of gives you an idea of the wonderfulness, the depth of this teacher, Empty Cloud. Just going to cover myself because it's very cold. So these writings are kind of, some are teachings directly from Empty Cloud, this master, and some are from a very close disciple of his. But for all intents and purposes, these are the teachings of Empty Cloud. And it's a book that I read recently while on retreat, and I found that it was very rich, very direct and wise. So I just wanted to share this. And as I'm reading through this, I might add some extra information. And also if someone here, we have 3 people here at the monastery, at the center. So we're here together. But also online, if you want to speak up, if you want to ask a question, just make your presence heard. So we have 17 people, or about 23 people online, and we have 4 people, including myself here. So we've got a nice group for looking at these teachings. So I will start now with the reading, and we can listen to this with our meditation in mind. So we listen as a meditation. It's always the right way to listen to these kinds of teachings. Dear friends, let me tell you a little story a wise man once told me. He said, "Once I found myself in an unfamiliar country, walking down a strange street. I looked around trying to get my bearings, and seeing 2 men who were standing nearby, I approached them. 'Where am I asked. 'Who are you people?'" Maybe we can close this door. Would you close that for me? Thank you. The truck outside making a little bit of noise. Your legs working? A little bit? Enough to get the job done, yeah? Can close that one too. That's great. Thank you. And of course, anyone here in the Discord, if you are thinking of taking a trip to Italy, we've got, we're ready for you. So come on down to Italy as soon as you're ready, and you can freeze along with us. You can be very cold along with us. All right. So, a story from a wise man. Once I found myself in an unfamiliar country walking down a strange street. I looked around trying to get my bearings, and seeing 2 men who were standing nearby, I approached them. "Where am I asked. "Who are you people?" The first man replied, "This is the world of samsara, and in this world I happen to be the very tallest dwarf there is." And the other man replied, "Yes, and I happen to be the shortest giant." This encounter left me very confused because, you see, both men were exactly the same height. I preface my remarks to you with this little story because I want to emphasize at the outset how important it is to consider the perception of things. So we can say that rather than seeing things as they are, we see our perception of things. And that's also scientifically. It doesn't matter how nice of a microscope you get, you're still using the eyes of a monkey or the eyes of a sack of flesh, at least. So perception. And the world of samsara is where we live, the world of illusion, the world of dreaming, the world of suffering, the world of attachment and misery, difficulty. Huineng, the 6th and last patriarch of our Chan path, Chan is a Zen Buddhism, once came upon 2 monks who were arguing about a banner that was waving in the wind. The first monk said, "It is the banner that is moving." Banner is like a flag. The other monk said, "No, it is the wind that is moving." The 6th patriarch admonished them both. Patriarch is like this master of Zen. Admonished them both. "Good sirs," he said, "it is your mind that is doing all the moving. In the world of samsara, a person is the measure of all things. Everything is relative. Everything is changing. Only in the real world, the world of nirvana, is there constancy." In Zen, our task is to discriminate, not between the false and the false, but between the false and the real. Differences in outward appearance do not matter at all. The real world is inside us. It is even inside our mind. Now, It is my happy task to help you to gain entrance into the real world. The world in which there are no dwarfs and giants and meaningless arguments. In the real world, there is only peace and joy and truth, and freedom from the nagging desire for troublesome illusions. Dear friends, every human being possesses two self-natures, an apparent one and a real one. The apparent one is our small self or ego, which is everywhere different from all other small selves. The real one is our great Buddha self, which is everywhere the same. Our small self exists in the apparent world, the world of samsara. Our Buddha self exists in the real world, the world of nirvana. So something that comes to mind for me is that many times I have a perception. Recently, I lost my coffee, and I thought, there's evil people afoot. Someone saw that coffee, they knew that it was special coffee, and they took it for themselves. I didn't have that strong of an idea about it. I just thought something happened to it. And we can have these kind of appearances in our mind all the time. This person is like that, I am like that, this situation is like that. All these kind of perceptions, all of this, the way that things appear to be. But it's very often that it's not the way that things appear to be. It's something totally different. And here, it's not talking about that something totally different, like you think it's a good thing or you think it's a bad thing, and then it's the other way around. But here, it's talking about the real nature of reality, the way that things actually are, not the way that things appear to be, whether good or bad. Both worlds, this Buddha self existing in the real world and this apparent self or small self, this egoic self, existing in the apparent world, what appears to be so. It appears to be that I'm sitting in a cold building, but in the real world, there's only happiness and peace and emptiness. So our Buddha self exists in the real world, the world of nirvana. Both worlds are located in the same place. In the Heart Sutra, we read, "Form is not different from emptiness, and emptiness is not different from form." Everyone wants to know, how can samsara and nirvana be the same? How can illusion be the same as reality? How can I be me and the Buddha too? These are good questions. Every Buddhist needs to know the answer to them. The answer lies in the way that we perceive reality. If we perceive reality directly, we see it in its nirvanic purity. If we perceive it indirectly through our ego consciousness, we see it in its samsaric distortion. Why is our view of reality flawed? Samsara is the world our small self thinks it sees and apprehends with its senses. Sometimes we just make mistakes. If a woman were walking in the woods and came upon a coil of rope on the path, and she thought the rope was a snake, she would quickly run away. To her, that rope was a snake, and she would act accordingly. When she returned home, she'd likely tell everyone about that dangerous snake that almost bit her in the woods. Her fear was genuine. her reason for fear was not. The small ego self also misperceives reality whenever it imposes arbitrary aesthetic or moral judgments upon it. If one woman sees another woman who is wearing a green hat and says, "I see a woman who is wearing a green hat," there is no problem. But if she says, "I see a woman who is wearing an ugly green hat," she is making a samsaric judgment. Somebody else might find that hat beautiful, but in reality it is neither beautiful nor ugly. It merely is. So having preferences is not inherently problematic. That's ugly, that's beautiful, that's normal that we think in this way, that we see in this way. The issue is thinking that that is something more meaningful or deeper than a distorted view. The issue is in relying on that perception of preference and not seeing that it's just a hat. It's just an experience. It's not inherently good or bad. It's not inherently ugly or beautiful. It just is what it is. But it's natural that, our preferences will come up. We just don't believe in them. We don't rely on them as if they are somehow holy, holy beautifulness or holy ugliness. Moment by moment, there are actions that we take that are skillful or unskillful, that support suffering in that moment or reduce suffering in that moment. But otherwise, we shouldn't hold too strongly to ideas of good and bad, especially ugly or beautiful. Likewise, when a fox kills a rabbit, this, to the bunnies who will starve to death because their mother has been killed, is a very evil act. But to the hungry fox cubs who eat the rabbit that their mother has brought them, this same event is decidedly good. In reality, the event is neither good nor evil. It merely is. Reality is also misinterpreted because both the observer and that which is being observed are constantly changing. The observer and that which is being observed are constantly changing. There is no precise moment in which a bud becomes a bloom, or a bloom becomes a fruit, or a fruit becomes a seed, or a seed a budding tree. All these changes are subtle and continuous. We cannot step into the same river twice, for the water is constantly flowing. We also are not the same person from one minute to the next. Constantly we acquire new information and new experiences as we simultaneously forget old information and old experiences. Yesterday, we can recall what we had for dinner the evening before. Tomorrow, we will no longer be privileged to recall that menu, unless perhaps it was a sumptuous feast of some kind, or else we always eat the same food and can say with certainty, it was rice and bean curd. Anyone have a question or a comment so far? Something to share up to this point?
Yeah, I had a question.
Okay.
My question was, so you talk about the nirvana mode and the samsaric mode. Would you, would it be correct to say that nirvana is the ancient entity, and then samsaric is your interpretation of that entity, or is it a bit different from that?
I don't think you would want to call it an entity. Is Earth an entity? Are you an entity? It's more about relationship and this state of experience is what nirvana is, not necessarily an entity. Like it said that nirvana and samsara are not separate, but it's your perception, it's your confused thinking, it's your habits of attachment and craving and aversion that put you at odds with reality as it is, as you're experiencing it right now. Anything else to add to that? The illusion of life is the opposite of the illusion of the cinema. In the cinema, a series of individual images are run together to form the illusion of continuous movement. In life, we intercept continuous motion, isolate and freeze an image, and then name and fix it as though it were a concrete individual object or event. We don't always agree on fixing the moment in time. What is a young woman? If a man is 90 years old, lots of women are young women. Well, we may have a better idea of why our small self misperceives reality. But still we wonder, why do we have two selves in the first place? The answer is simply because we are human beings. Our small self provides us with that conscious sense of continuing identity that allows each of us to know, I am today who I was yesterday and will be again tomorrow. Without it, we could not organize the sensory data that assail us. Without it, we would have no sense of belonging or of being connected to others. We would have no parents or family to call our own, no spouse or children, no teachers or friends to guide and encourage us. Our small self gives us our human nature. As we grow, we discover that our lifeline's thread is not a long continuous strand, with each event separately strung on it like beads on a rosary. No. The thread weaves itself into a net, an interdependent array of knots. We cannot remove a single knot without affecting the others. We cannot pull out a single line of our history without perhaps altering the entire course of it. This network of information and experience, of conditioning and association, of memory and misunderstanding, soon becomes a complicated and bewildering tangle, and we become confused about our place in the scheme of things. When we are young, we see ourselves at the center of our universe. But as we get older, we are no longer certain of our position or our identity. We think, I am not the person I was when I was 10 years old, but neither am I anybody different. We soon wonder, who am I? Our ego self has led us into this confusion. Confusion leads to calamity, and then life. As the Buddha noted in his first noble truth, becomes bitter and painful. So when we are in a confused state, we don't have a very direct connection to simplicity, or just being aware, or being wholesome, being kind, being generous. We're just very, very confused. we get ourselves into really intense, crazy situations. We get ourselves into calamity, great misfortunes, great problems that we bring upon ourselves or that we bring upon other people. And then life, as the Buddha noted in his First Noble Truth, becomes bitter and painful. So a lot of people, I would say myself especially, I got into Buddhism, I got into meditation because I worked myself into a calamity. And I was distinctly aware of the First Noble Truth, distinctly aware that there is suffering, there is difficulty. It's a very matter-of-fact part of our life. And of course, it originates from this confusion, from this lack of wisdom. If we weren't confused, we would do quite a good job to take care of ourselves, to take care of other people. But we tend to be more confused than not. And especially in a modern Western world with advertising and media, confusion is ideal for business. Confusion is ideal for consumerism and materialism. If you're in a state of confusion, you are easily manipulatable. You are easily able to be sold something. So don't be confused, see clearly. But how do we clear up this confusion? We turn our consciousness around. This is what we're doing in meditation. We can say that this is what, we had this term, the author brought up this term of to understand samsara, to understand nirvana is something very, or to understand how we can be a small self, an ego self, a confused self, but also have this kind of Buddha self, this wisdom inside of us. How can we be that at the same time? And that this is a very important matter to clarify for any Buddhist person. You can also say for any yogi, for any sincere practitioner. And what makes someone a yogi, what makes someone a sincere spiritual practitioner? And that is asking this question of how do we clear up this confusion, and finding the answer that we turn our consciousness around. We reject the outward world's complexity in favor of the inward world's simplicity. This is very, very essential. And I think it's quite counterintuitive, but because when we look around and we see the outward world, we think money, material items, solid objects, it's cold outside, it's hot outside, I want this, I want that. It seems quite simple. And then we think about our own mind, we think about inside of ourselves, and it seems very complicated. There's so much desire, there's so much trauma, there's so much, what am I going to do? How am I going to figure all this out? There's so much stress and confusion inside ourselves. But actually, if you reject all of this consumption, this craving, this aversion from the outside, if you're no longer buying into all of this outside activity, and that's, of course, where all of our traumas come from. They come from the outside. We're not inwardly kind of traumatizing ourselves out of the blue. If we can reject all that outward complexity and start to look inward, we find that it's simple inside. It's not complicated to self-regulate. It's not complicated to be aware. It's not complicated to be with the body, to be with the breath, to experience peace. It's not complicated. But for so many generations, for eons, for limitless lifetimes, we have disregarded the essential for the pleasurable or for the unpleasurable. We have disregarded our nature, our peace, our joy, our happiness, our mind, our body, for all of these machinations, these ways of chasing pleasure and trying to get away from pain. So naturally, there's some confusion. There's some built-up habit energies and ignorance that we've worked ourselves into, because for such a long time we've disregarded this essential Buddha mind, the way that things are as they are. So how do we clear up this confusion? We turn our consciousness around. We turn our awareness around in favor of the inward world's simplicity. Instead of trying to gain power and glory for our small ego self, we turn our consciousness inward to discover the glory of our Buddha self. Instead of making ourselves wretched, seeking to be a master of others, we find joy and contentment in being one with our Buddha self and in serving others. Dear friends, the purpose of Chan training, the purpose of Zen training, is to clarify our vision so that we can gain insight into our true identities, keeping in mind that this is not something that anyone else can inform you of. No one else can show you this or tell you this or even point you in the direction of this. It's a matter of your own consideration. So, dear friends, the purpose of Chan training, Zen Buddhist training, is to clarify our vision so that we can gain insight into our true identities. Chan, Zen, enables us to transcend our human nature and realize our Buddha nature. Centuries ago, our Chan meditation sect was founded and formed by two great men, two great people. The first patriarch Bodhidharma, who came to China from India, and Huineng, the Chinese-born sixth patriarch. Because of these two people, Chan flourished, Zen flourished, enlightenment flourished, seeing your true nature flourished, spreading throughout China and into many distant lands. Now, what were the most important teachings of Bodhidharma and Huineng? Rid the mind of egotism. Free it of defiling thoughts. If these directives are not followed, there can be no success in the path of enlightenment. The path of enlightenment lies before you. Follow it. It will deliver you to peace, joy, truth, and freedom. So that's chapter 1. Tomorrow we will go to chapter 2, the Zen training. So that will be informative, I'm sure. Now we will have our final meditation practice together. So take a moment to readjust your posture. Take a moment to get comfortable in a meditation position. So after going through this reading, we may have the feeling or the idea about, well, what is meditation, and what am I supposed to do now? The meditation instructions are clear. Turning the mind around, turning our consciousness, our awareness around, letting go of the outward world's complexities, the whole story of yourself, your relationships with others, all your experiences up to now with the outside world, and embracing the inner mind, the simplicity of inside. We can begin our meditation with a few deep breaths, turning our awareness and our focus around. Bringing our mind inside. Our practice of meditation, simply breathing, being aware of the body as a whole. At any time, if we encounter difficulty, confusion, stress, return back to the breath, return back to awareness of the body, refresh, restart, continue. Just breathing, just being aware. Don't get caught up in any particular string of thought. And if you do, just let it go, continue practicing. If you fall asleep, wake up. If you develop any tension or tightness, relax and release it. Continuing to breathe and be aware. Can all bring our hands together. And you're welcome to join in with the chanting with me as we finish. Going to chant Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddha 3 times, and then Sadhu 3 times. So you can join in or just listen, up to you. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Sadhu. 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 And we can bow. All right. So thank you everyone for joining in our group meditation practice and study. We're going to continue our reading tomorrow. Does anyone have any final question or comment before we wrap up, before we close out here?
Thank you for your teaching.
Yes, thank you, Karuna, for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So we will end it. Well, anyone here have a question or a comment? Anyone here in the temple?
It was a beautiful piece you read.
All right. Great. Okay. So thanks for joining, everyone. Take care.
Alright,
Oh,
yeah,
Stefan?
one question.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry, so many questions. Sometimes you talk about these more conceptual ideas that sometimes they're hard to like imagine. Well, for me at least, it's kind of hard to imagine. Like for example, in the first meditation session, you're talking about imagine a connection between your breathing and your mind. What do you recommend to do when like it's hard to conceptualize such a subjective idea, or is that just part of the learning process and you just put up with it?
No, you shouldn't be conceptualizing it. If you don't understand the connection between your breathing and your mind, then you're totally hopeless. There is no separation between your breathing and your mind. Try this exercise. Try to stop breathing. See how long that lasts. So your mind and your breath, they go together. Okay, it's not about conceptualizing, it's about giving up this idea of seeing through ideas, seeing through belief, seeing through concepts. You're just breathing. You're just being aware of the breath, aware of the body. That's it. That's what this time is for. You can spend all your other time, conceptualizing if you want to. But when we practice meditation, it's just to breathe, just to be aware, just to focus. We notice our minds start to conceptualize, start to get caught up in thinking, and then we return back to the breath, or we return back to our method of meditation, of which there are many. Can be awareness of your body, can be focusing on the breath, it can be practicing metta, practicing loving kindness. Is that clear, Stefan?
Yeah, that's very useful. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for joining, everyone. We will have another sit in. Actually, today we're going to be changing the schedule. We will have another sit in about 6 hours from now. So that will be 8 p.m. Italy time. And for New York time, 6 hours from now, New York time, what will that be? That will be, I can't imagine. New York time right now is Google just doesn't work how it used to. What's that?
6 hours from now, New York time is 2:22.
Okay, so yeah, it will be 2 p.m. New York time that we'll have our next session, and that'll be every day. So it will be 7 a.m. New York time and 2 p.m. New York time. That will be our schedule. Okay? Thank you for joining, everyone. Take care of yourself. See you again. Sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you.
All right, you have a good time? Great. Very good.